and ask for a roll call, please.
Stanislaus County Representative, City of Ceres Representative,
Here.
City of Houston Representative, City of Modesto Chair,
Here.
City of Newman Representative, City of Oakdale Representative, City of Patterson Representative,
Here.
City of Riverbank Representative,
Here.
City of Turlock Representative, and City of Waterford Representative.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, we'll go on to item 3, public comments. Is there anyone in the public who would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, go on to 4A, motion to approve the Management and Finance Committee minutes of January 7, 2026. Any questions on the minutes? Any comments from the public? Bring it back for a motion.
Motion to approve Riverbank.
Motion from Riverbank and a second from Houston. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay. Passes unanimously. We'll go on to agenda item 5, discussion action items. 5A, fiscal year 2025-26 overall work program amendment 1.
I'm going to kick this one off just to, first of all, sorry.
One or
Amendment number 3.
It's amendment number 3.
3?
Yeah.
Sorry.
In the course of identifying the error that a couple of you had already pointed out to us, we then recognized that there was actually some issues with the spreadsheet and some cells doing their own thing. And so we had to actually transfer this into a new spreadsheet. And when we did that, we identified that there was an additional error. And I just wanted to point it out that indirect costs were actually being deducted instead of adding. And that changed our totals of $900K. And is that on Schedule 2? Right, Schedule 2. So there's a big change there. And again, thank you for pointing that out to us. There's a lot of numbers to crunch manually, but I think now we've got a path forward with a new, fresh spreadsheet. And with that, I will hand it over to Jean and Jen to review with you.
Great, thank you so much, Kate. Next slide, please. So the OWP is a required document that we have to submit each year to our funding partners, which include FHWA, FTA, and Caltrans. It's a management tool which identifies tasks and products that StanCog will undertake each fiscal year. Amendment number 3 is necessary to include Caltrans carryover fundings for FY 24-25. Next slide. Operating and project revenues. So first thing we want to point out here is that we've taken off the Measure L 1% for outreach and education. That has been removed, and you can see that in the the last full box on the right. And those monies will be funded now through the Measure L admin funds. So I wanted to point that out. And then I'm going to give it over to Jen to make general comments on the worksheet.
So we also removed the SB1 24-25 funds. They were based on estimates in the original amendment, but when we got the final allocations, they were removed and the amount was 0. So we backed out that $314,000. So for the total operating and project revenue, we had a decrease from Amendment 2 to Amendment 3 of $1.4 million. And then if you'd like to go to the next slide, to Schedule 2.
So on that one, it's their expenditure budget. Here we list the contract cost increases that we had this year. We had additional auditing costs of $30,000, outside legal services of $300,000, CPA support. We have a CPA helping us internally with our financials right now. Consulting services, which includes the executive recruitment and updates of our policies and procedures, which we're having someone do. We have temporary staff on site helping us with our finance department. And then finally, the interim executive director for $180,000. So now I'll turn it over to Jen for statements on the schedule.
So on the non-cash adjustments, we backed out the original $366,000 that was an indirect cost carryover, but we've been using that carryover previously for current indirect costs, so I backed it out of the amendment. So for our total operating expenditures, there was an increase from the 8.1 million to 8.5 million for the $477,000 increase overall.
Next slide. And this one really didn't have any changes, but I'll let Jen discuss the worksheet.
Okay, on the projects and contracts, there was just a typo originally, so we backed out the $10,000 transposition. And then for our total operating and project expenditures, that became $467,000 increase from Amendment 2 to the Amendment 3. And then since our operating and project revenue went from 19.7 million to 18.2 million, that was a decrease in $1.47 million overall, leaving us with a surplus of 4.1 million for this amendment time, but the change is 1.938 million from the original Amendment 2 to Amendment 3.
And then finally to Schedule 4, Jen.
So for capital and project expenditure budget, the main change was some PPM carryover funds that weren't included previously. So we did a reconciliation and found that we should include that, and we did. And then for the LPP and RIP funds that were being used for the Measure L 132 projects, those had been expended, and then the new funds that are available for this time to reimburse that project, those were input at the 3.2 and the 2.2 million.
And that concludes the report. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
I noticed you put the $180,000 in for the interim director, which is great, but are we realizing any salary savings now that our permanent director is not on staff? Because I can still see that we're going up 704,000 on salaries and benefits. I'm just trying to understand how it can go up by 700,000 when we're not paying the salaries and benefits associated with our last director.
Yeah, so we still have the fully allocated costs for the interim, the new ED when they come, and use this as the 180 out of consulting costs.
Okay.
Yeah. So you'll see that come down.
So you didn't realize it here. You're thinking that you're going to realize the savings when you do your end of year financials.
Yes.
What's accounting for the increase in general?
And the increase of the salaries?
Yeah, the 704,000.
I think the last round of increase wasn't accounted for in the prior. So we made sure that was added into this current amendment to reflect.
Like salary increases, you mean?
Well, I
Or
mean,
new
part of that
employees.
is that we paid significant payout for 3 top-tier directors' vacation.
Yeah.
So the amount of money for our payroll for this year, I think, is higher than it would normally be. And hopefully that's going to end up balancing out because we're going to be only about 50% FTEs for a while until we can staff back up. The other thing I would just say is that even, if we can get staffed up, there isn't a lot of people with expertise and they're going to be new. And so it may be a while before we can actually reduce the consultants' staff. So we're anticipating that we're going to have some additional, probably a lump in that sometime over the next 6 to 9 months, and then it will balance out again.
Other question?
I do have one last question. Travel and conferences, seminars, I see you reduced by 150,000, but 200,000 for a staff as small as this is seems excessive. Is there more to it, like this, we're running a conference and or is it just for people to go to conference for meals, hotels, and conference registration?
Yeah, prior, the deal was that many of, not just one, but a couple of board members would go to some of these major conferences over in like DC. So that really drove the cost up of the conferences. We put almost a moratorium on travel and training for right now. We know we have,
Ian, can you speak closer to the mic, please?
oh, so sorry.
Thank you.
We know we have to go back to allowing staff to go to trainings and conferences, but we put a hold on that, and the board participated in that hold in general as well.
Any questions? I'll kind of just ask a potentially a dumb question, so I'll go ahead and put myself out there for a second. And so because this isn't a traditional budget, like the way we do budgets, right? And this is a work plan that's submitted state, federally, and there's never any accounting associated with the plan, right? So your expended, like say salaries and benefits, like you budget 4.2 whatever million.
Mayor, if we could please speak closer to the mic.
Sorry. So there's never the accounting of those dollars associated with it. So we never know, we can never reconcile. You're already running a project or a surplus of 4.2 million. And then that includes all of the expenditures of those dollars, which we all know never happens, right? And so your projected surplus is always higher. And then what happens to that money?
I don't think there's a way to go back, but as you know, this agency has not had a discipline of actually creating a budget and providing those updates to the board. We are doing things much differently this time around. We are in the process of developing a budget right now, and which was going to be my, my little surprise on my executive report. So
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
So we are developing that, and moving forward, there's going to be a lot more transparency because we will be able to provide you with quarterly updates that is, disaggregated by all of the various categories that you all use in your budget. So it's going to be 3 separate budgets: a Measure L budget, our operating budget, and then our project and planning budget.
Great.
I might have missed something. So we have a $4 million surplus this year. How much do we have in surplus?
That is another excellent question. And I would just say that we are working on identifying, we had set 2 open years. And so our rollover amounts of revenues have been challenging to identify, but our brilliant consultant accountant that we've hired from Brown Armstrong has been able to come up with those numbers, and that will be showing in the draft budget. But right now, we've got everybody's individual budget, and we've got the rollover funds. We have most of our revenue projections done. I would say that we'd probably be able to bring you a draft budget in March because we need to get the draft OWP to Caltrans at the end of this month. And it will go to the board in March with, I don't think we'll probably not bring our draft budget then, because I think what we'll do is go in April with the first reading and a public hearing of the budget. And then the board would adopt the budget in May. And if there's any issues in June before the beginning of the fiscal year. But we can certainly bring you a draft budget next month for discussion and for review. And I don't know, a celebration of some kind.
Well, that'll show us what our total.
We'll show the rollover amount. It'll show
Over the
the
years.
revenue projections for fiscal year 26, 27, our planned projects and programs and plans, and as well as our operating budget, which is going to be very projected because right now we don't really know when staff is going to come on board, and that's obviously our biggest single ticket item. There is in there, I think, just because I know this is going to come up and I might as well talk about it now. And it will be totally up to the board because the board's still trying to figure out what we're going to do with the building. But it does include actually $250,000 for preliminary engineering and, well, preliminary design and potential engineering for the building. And I don't anticipate that we'll be done with that design until the following fiscal year. And that's when if the board is supportive of it, where we would have some idea of what those construction costs are. But we are planning on actually going to doing preliminary schematic drawings and some options for construction costs. And that's going to go to the board this month on consent. It was on last month's. Yeah. So the building thing I know is a little bit of an issue. So I just wanted to pull that out and talk about it a little bit.
Getting back to my original question, it will show the rollover, but the total rollover for all the years, for everything that's in the bank right now, that's a rollover.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Any comments from the public? All right, is this informational?
Discussion items.
All right, any other comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion.
There's no motion necessary,
I thought it was a
just
action
discussion.
item. Okay. 5B, Management and Finance Ad Hoc Committee update.
Yeah, just really quickly, we wanted to get back to you about the management and finance, or excuse me, the policy board, getting getting volunteers to be on the ad hoc committee for the Measure L ad hoc committee. That will be going to the policy board this month to select a couple of members from the policy board, and then we can select the members from the Measure L oversight committee and start with that effort. That's just a really quick update on that. But I'd be happy to answer questions if you have.
I'm sorry, I'm not tracking what that was.
So the Measure L, if you recall, they sent a couple of the Measure L Oversight Committee sent a couple of letters.
Right.
Yeah, and one of them was to urge the policy board to adopt a ad hoc committee to go over numerous different things, some of which the body was asking about, but basically about the 1% for public outreach and education, for the legality of certain things in the Measure L and what we can and can't do. And so that item was taken to the board last month to ask them, did they agree to have an ad hoc committee? They agreed. And then this month they will be asking for volunteers to sit on that committee.
Any questions?
I just would add that if you have a member of your members on our board, we're having a hard time getting interest. So right now we only have 3 volunteers. So if it's something that's super interesting to you, I would encourage you to ask your governing members on our board to volunteer. Thank you.
Gene, on this ad hoc and Measure L, does that have to do the audits also, that the recommendations are made by the
They'll be looking into,
business committee?
yes, I'll be looking into that. Just generally speaking, the audits are wrapping up. But they will be addressing that too, yes. So I'll be looking at the Measure L annual report, things like that have been late or are in question at all.
All right, any further questions or comments on this item? All right. Go to no action on this one either, right? This is just a report. All right, 5C, establishing employee classification, salary ranges, organizational structure, and executive director authority.
Thank you. Kate Miller, Interim Executive Director. So the agency has never established an employee classification chart and salary ranges that have been in one place, that have been something that we can look to establish salary ranges for particular staff positions. So we've approached this by, so that we could have something in place. And I just would add that Shannon is still doing work with the other Valley COGs to compare salaries and coordinate that effort. In the interim, we identified 2 agencies that had recently developed or had compensation studies completed. And they're in different areas of the state. And so we use the Labor Bureau statistics to make adjustments to the salary ranges. Effectively, if you go to actually, they're not labeled, sorry. If you go to the second page of the tables, this table shows the comparison between the Napa Valley Transportation Authority and the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commissions, what their salary was based on their compensation study. And then we adjusted it to the Bureau of Labor Statistics labor categories, which for Napa was roughly 9% higher than Stancock. So we made that adjustment to the salaries, and those amounts then are reflected on the first table. The positions, we've outlined the positions that we think we need to complete the mission that the agency does, the planning, programming, project delivery. So those are laid out there on an annual, monthly, and biweekly maximum and minimum amount. So the proposal would be for the policy board to adopt this classification chart and salary ranges, and then every year, based on an average of the salary increases from the county and 2 of our Valley Council of Government agencies, the average of that, or the prior year cost of living in Stanislaus County, whatever is higher. And so the board would make those adjustments each year, and that would not necessarily grant any particular employee an increase, but unless they're at the very top of their range, salary increases would be based 100% on merit. The other proposal is that the board have 100% authority on the number of FTEs, the classifications, and the salary range, but to grant the executive director the authority to alter the organizational chart so that it meets the needs of the agency and responds to industry trends. Attached is a very vague org chart that I think probably better works for the agency. And again, it would be up to the new executive director's discretion to decide how exactly they would like to structure the agency. But I wanted to put that out there because it's quite a bit different than the existing organizational chart, which is actually, not only did I identify this as not being necessarily something that really would work for the organization, but the person who's going through our employee policies acknowledged the same thing. So this is, again, a vague start, but an understanding of sort of what we would need to really be effective at the work we do. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions about the committee?
Couple of questions. This says Stancock's currently updating its personnel policies or employee handbook, and anticipates this policy board will consider adopting it. The policy board directed Stancock about 5 months ago that has to come to the MFC first for consideration and adjustments before it goes to the policy.
Right. So we have a draft, and I had some questions and modifications to that draft. So we're working through that with Monica and with Jean, and we will bring it to you next month.
So it's not going to the policy board yet.
No, because it's not ready. No, the intention is to bring it in March, and I think that's what my memo says.
Yeah, your thing says it's going to go to March, which would be next month, and we're not going to see it till next month, so
But you'll see it before you'll see it before the policy board.
maybe be able to make adjustments before it goes to policy board if we.
Sure.
Right.
Well, you can make recommendations.
And then you and I discussed this earlier and stuff about the Napa Valley Transportation and Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission. Neither one are in the valley. You just made a statement earlier that, you know, some of your staff is trying to get numbers from the Central Valley COGS. Why don't we do that first? It's having to do all the other stuff. And because down here on the pay raises, it says you're going to compare it with the local agencies. Well, why don't you start with the pay with local agencies to make it simple? Because both of those, neither one of those are MPOs or RTPAs.
Right. It was because, well, first of all, they do very much the same work that we do. It was because they had very fresh compensation studies. And that's the reason why we approached it this way. And no one in the Valley had done that. There's been a lot of compensation studies on executive director salaries, but nothing on staff. So, you know, this is not going to prohibit us from taking as I pointed out, Shannon is trying to come up with a chart that shows the various salaries array across the various COGS. And if there is something that really stands out, then certainly we will go back to the board and ask them to adopt that change. But I think I feel pretty comfortable with the analysis and the approach. So I just wanted to make sure we had the most up-to-date information, and those were the two agencies that were more or less close to us in terms of the work we do. The distinction is that we have to create a regional transportation plan and adopt a sustainable community strategy. Those agencies still have to do countywide transportation plans, so it's a little bit different. But they also have other responsibilities. At NVTA, for example, manages the transit system on top of doing the work they do. And then I would just say that NVTA actually has a lot more work than this agency does because of the transit system and because they're delivering a lot of capital projects that this agency is very focused right now on one. NVTA could have 3 or 4 going at the same time. So, and I can't speak specifically to the work that Santa Cruz does, but I know that they do very similar things.
So this agency could be doing multiple. It chooses to do one. That's about 132. I'm not done yet. So, and then also, our learning colleague right from Oakdale, he and I both have a law enforcement background, and so going out of a county or going Bay Area to get comp and class doesn't count. And no, I don't know of any agency that will sit there and allow you to use numbers from the Bay Area to try and compare and come up with numbers for a Central Valley.
Yeah, but I did adjust them to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, right? So
I don't think that's exactly real truthful. I don't think you can sit there and say we're only 9% behind the Bay Area. This looks like what you did the adjustments. I think the salary differences are quite huge. I know taking comparison, let's say, well, where did Sacramento County city manager or Sacramento city manager come from?
Santa Rosa.
So Santa Rosa, she was getting paid.
Vice Chair, please speak closer to the microphone for the recording.
So she was coming from, you know, Santa Rosa. She was making over $400,000. You take 9% off of that, that doesn't equate anywhere close to my salary.
So I would just say that the executive position was not, did not go through the process. That was an established amount that the board made, right? And I think it was based on the recruiter had gone out and looked at salary. So we did not touch that one. That was there. I would just say Napa's salaries are probably lower than the rest of the Bay Area anyway. I think the salary range is not far off from where some of the positions that we recently listed are. So I mean, I just wanted to start somewhere, and that is the approach that I used.
Yeah, and speaking with the executive director, it's just kind of interesting that the top step person, the closest to the executive director gets paid 55% more than the top step?
On this chart?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this executive director salary is pretty high.
But
And
that's
it's,
what
and
you're
it's not,
saying.
it's not inconsistent with what we have now. I mean, nobody in the office is going to have to take a salary cut. In fact, a couple of the positions are going to get a bump because their positions don't hit the minimum.
And then it's just my own little pet peeve. So like under the adjusting salary ranges annually, there's San Joaquin is misspelled and the Merced Association of
Thank
Governments
you.
is actually Merced Council Association of Governments,
Thank you.
MCAG.
I'll make that correction.
And then all salary adjustments would be otherwise be based on merit. Is that in the employee handbook or is that what's changing to make that go to merit based or from what it is now, or is it that now?
Right now, everybody gets a cost of living increase regardless of their performance.
Are you talking cost of living or step increase?
No, cost of living. Right now, everybody gets a cost of living every year.
Well, they don't have a step increase because they don't have the salaries,
Yeah, they don't.
which is.
But in this case, yeah, in this case, you'll have step increases. Those are still based on merit?
So ask that, say that again.
You have a,
Please speak closer to the mic.
you have a, are you putting together a salary schedule from like step A, B, C, D, and E? Or are you just showing a top and a minimum and a maximum?
This is a minimum and a maximum, and I did look at just doing the steps as well, linked to this. I just didn't have time to pull it together for this meeting. So we may do that. That's something that NVTA does. It's sort of optional. But it does, again, provide an avenue of adding different positions. But again, that would be up to the board based on the proposal moving forward. That body is the only body that can increase the number of FTEs under this proposal.
So you bring someone at the bottom, or the minimum. You do your COLA analysis.
Well, no, I don't know. I think that's an assumption. If
No,
we-
I'm just
Right.
saying,
Okay.
just throwing out an example.
Got it.
So they come in to say 100,000. You do an analysis and it says the COLA should be 3%. They're just going to get 103%? Or are you looking to give them 103% plus a little more? Because they're never going to get to that end, the max, if they're always, are you shifting the whole scale with the COLA as well?
That's correct.
It's just it's very unique what you're trying to do here and build here.
There's other agencies that do this very similar thing.
And then FTEs, how many are currently approved?
20 right now.
How would you, if the COLA, I mean, if the scale is sliding upwards along with the COLA, and so I get hired at $10 an hour and the top step is 30, and every time I get a 3%, the whole scale slides 3%. How do I get to the top?
Performance, right? People will get increases based on their performance.
So
And then if they're not performing at the very top, they'll still get a cost of living increase. I mean, when I know most of you have unions, right? So when you go through your union negotiations and there's an increase, you increase all those categories as well. So while we don't have a union, and just to adjust for the cost of living, that is like the same idea as negotiating the contract and changing all of the, changing all the classification salary ranges accordingly. And there'll be times actually when that amount of money that is increased is pretty small. Right now, obviously, we're going through an inflationary period, but in 2008, there would have been nothing or it would have gone down. So you never adjust your salary ranges down. So that was the idea of, and making sure that we were still in touch with, I mean, the agencies can change. Those three agencies are the two closest physical cogs, and then we chose the county. So that's why those three agencies, they're close to us, and if there's no increase, then it would be based on the prior year cost of living increase in Stanislaus County? Because you don't, I mean, I looked around, there's no regional um, evaluation of cost of living, like the whole valley doesn't like do a joint assessment of inflation or anything, right?
No, but we don't rely on the Bay Area to dictate.
No, I know. That's why I use those three things and not the Bay Area cost of living. Is, you know, there is a Bay Area cost of living that is consolidated, even though the 9 counties often have varying different kinds of inflationary factors.
So who would decide how much raise you got?
So everybody would, if they were at the top of their, well, it would be their supervisor in coordination with the executive director in terms of a merit raise. But in terms of this, if you're at the very top of your range and there's an inflationary increase, then you would get a little bit of bump there. But in terms of actually moving up within your class, that would be based on performance.
Mr. Chair, Monica Struder has a comment online.
Oh, thank you. No, I was just asking to unmute. I heard some comments and I was going to interject if necessary. And so, no, I'm just listening, but thank you.
Sorry, Monica.
Any other questions?
I've got two. Shannon, when was the last time you got your valuation?
I think August of this year.
Josie,
Same.
and you got it on time?
Yeah, in the fiscal year. I mean, technically, we should have gotten it at the end of June, possibly the 1st of July.
And I'm actually recommending a change in that. Our current policy is to do performance evaluations all together at the end of the fiscal year, which I don't think is very fair for people who maybe got hired in July and then have to wait a whole year. And then some people got hired 4 months and may get a performance evaluation. It just seems like an odd thing to me. So the new employee policies would require that the performance evaluation occur on the person's anniversary.
Yeah, as far as the salary ranges go, we have salary ranges and that have steps that are 5% apart, and those steps all move with whatever the COLA moves. You move through the steps based on performance evaluation, which I think is what's being recommended, if I understand it correctly. However, I think I do have a little bit of an issue with how this initial salary is being set, and I'm only saying this because I will be going through negotiations here very shortly, and if I relied on Napa and Santa Cruz, my employee unions would be extremely happy. And so put myself on record here, I think you would probably behoove you to make sure you still get our Valley COGS,
Sure.
even as a
Yeah.
comparison against those two. While they're fresh salary data, I completely get that, but it has to be juxtaposed against what our Valley COGS are actually paying. And I think that would provide context to our policy board members as they're evaluating this concept of how far a line is applying that standard to what the Valley COGS are paying.
Okay, and just to reiterate, the salary ranges were reduced, right, by almost 10%. But the other thing that I would caution about relying too heavily on the Valley is that, and this is largely hearsay in the industry, is that the Valley offers really huge salaries to get people to come work in the Valley, as opposed to working in the Bay Area or Los Angeles and other places where it's, easier maybe to commute to work on, and so that, I think that it won't surprise me if that's what we find out when we start doing that comparison.
And just as a standard salary practice for the city of Modesto, and I'll just speak for us, we have our standard 11 agencies that we use, some that are comparable to us in size and scope, and then some that are geographically located towards us. And those things tend to balance themselves out. So that's just as a former HR director, just kind of my own 2 cents on how you set
Yeah,
salaries.
and I think, as Shannon does her work and maybe that work results in doing some sort of joint compensation study with our COG partners, that we'll certainly bring this back and update our salary ranges accordingly.
Yep.
I just wanted a starting point because
That's
of the employee handbook is coming And I didn't want to continue to do what we're doing now, which is very arbitrary.
Some comparisons better than none, so I appreciate the time.
So just for clarification, you're not asking for approval from us, you're just asking.
No,
for
I
information.
did want your feedback
Feedback.
though, and I think we can provide that feedback to the executive committee and the policy board. And, you know, what I heard was the concern about comparing it to a Bay Area, and also your desire to want us to look at both your salaries and the other cogs in the valley.
Any other questions or comments? All right, member of the public?
I was just for the engineering salaries, the ones they have listed, less than Modesto because it's less than the county, and the Modesto pays more on the engineering positions than the county does. So just on the engineering side in general, the salaries look a little low to me, frankly. We can't hire a civil engineer at 145,000. I don't think I've hired one in about 3 or 4 years. And City of Modesto pays more than we do for licensed civil engineers, a journey position, which would be the associate administrator / associate engineer, 136,920. I think ours pays 145. Modesto's higher than that, and you get 0 qualified applicants at that salary. So just saying that on the engineering side, it looks a little low to me, frankly. So whatever that's worth, I just thought I'd say that it's less than the county and certainly less than Modesto. And so we would be competitors, right? Why would I go to Stancog if I can go to the county and make 9,000 more? And why would I go to the county if I can go to the city of Modesto and make 10 more than that? So just saying. And Mike knows it's hard to find engineers, both Mikes sitting next to each other, right? You can't pay them enough. Right. Right, for sure.
Don't
So
worry,
just saying,
Okay, we're just sitting here trying to chair a meeting.
right, sorry. Just thought I shared that on the engineering side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public? All right, so this was informational as well? Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 6, information. We have A through D. Are there any comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, we'll go to 7, interim executive director report.
Thank you very much. Well, as I noted earlier, we are in the process of developing a budget, and it is fun to watch everybody's participation. And I look forward to seeing, I think we're going to start probably pulling it together early next week. We will bring you that draft budget as soon as possible. We also met with Caltrans to kick off the 2026-27 OWP. That meeting was really productive, and I think we will have a draft of that coming your way as well, probably in March. And then there is a walking tour planned for, here's this handout around, to elicit public comments for our community enhancement zones, to identify places where high performance transit and walking can be improved. So we invite you to participate in that, or your staff. We're also on February 9th. We have a project tour, which is being led by Jose Luis and help organized by Josie. Thank you, both of you. So it's the board, one of our board members was interested in this. And I don't know how many board members, but we also have some staff going, and we invite you to participate as well. It's at 9 o'clock in the morning here. Oh, here's the agenda. And unfortunately, I won't be able to attend, which is, I'm going to take a short trip, and so I won't be here in the middle of the next week. Both trips are actually we're getting support from Stan RTA to provide bus service for those events. Let's see. We, today, as did Dave Lehman, we went to the chamber and Tony Harris presented on State Route 132 Dakota to Gates. I just wanted to also give you a heads up that while we had tried to, Tony is not going to be around forever and doesn't want to hang out for this whole project. So I am recommending to the board that AAAing a project of that magnitude with the agency in the state that it is not a very smart thing to do. So we tried to work with Caltrans on that, and they were very difficult to work with. And I'm saying that in a public meeting. I can't believe that. But the county and Dave and I and Tony have been working together. And the county staff anyway, is very interested in helping us out. And Dave is going to approach his board next week, right? 2 weeks? Late February. So I just wanted to, I'm going to include it on my executive committee report to the policy board as a way, as an FYI. I think it's also better that we're keeping the Measure L funds that will be necessary to support county staff in county, so, and not giving it back to the state. So I think it's a win-win, and I really appreciate Dave's enthusiasm to help us out on that. Let's see. And then as part of our new austerity program, I am trying to cut back on things like providing food for everybody at every meeting. So there might be fewer potato chips and Cokes around the room. So just a heads up on that. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll go on to agenda item 8, member reports.
I have a question.
This is a report time, Doug, not questions.
I'm enjoying
If you-
Doug's
If
question.
you would like a question, you,
I'd like to
Well-
report a question.
sure, then that means we don't have to answer, so go ahead.
Is it possible, and give an example, like number 5, discussion/action items. None of us here know, are we taking action on these, or is it discussion items and stuff? Can we split that? And so we know this is strictly discussion item, or this is
Yes.
action items,
Absolutely, we will do that.
to make it easier on us, so we know, okay, yeah, we're
And that way,
taking
yeah,
action.
then you can just read the agenda.
Yeah.
Call it good. Yeah, okay, we'll do that.
I think he was saying that I don't know how to read an agenda report, but that's okay. Any other member reports? All right, I'll call the meeting adjourned at 3:47.